Hey everybody, it's Dan. Welcome to Weld Fever. On today's episode, I'm going to take yet another viewer request, and we're going to do a little work with our grinders today. So stick with me. Here we go. Okay, before we get started, again, I want to remind everybody that the official Weld Fever logo cap is available for sale on weldfever.com. Just log on to www.weldfever.com and click on the logo icon for the store up at the top right, and you'll be taken right to where you can purchase this hat. Every time you purchase one of these, it helps support the show. It's going to allow us to make better and better videos for you in the future. So do us a favor and support us. Also, we now have the official Weld Fever bumper sticker. We have these for sale as well. They're a very low price, and shipping is included with this one. And for a limited time, if you buy this hat, we'll include a bumper sticker for free. So check us out, www.weldfever.com. Click on the link to the store at the top right, and thanks for supporting our show. Okay, as you can see here, I have three different brands of angle grinders. I'm not really about promoting any particular brand of angle grinder. I use various types myself, and as you'll notice here on the left side, we have a grinder that has the handle attachment on the left of it. Now, I don't often use that, but it's definitely a good idea when you're doing some heavy work, or if you need just a little extra grip and you don't feel like you have control of the grinder. It definitely is helpful, and most of the time you have a hole on the left side and the right side. In case you're left or right-handed, you can change it up. And there are even some grinder models that have a hole up on the top in case you're having to grind in an awkward position and maybe. Now, angle grinders are an essential tool in any welder or metal worker's arsenal. And as a welder and a general metal fabricator, I don't know, we would be lost without angle grinders. They serve so many purposes, and it seems like I'm using one of those a heck of a lot more than I'm ever using a welder. Not because my welds are bad, mind you, but because there's just a lot of things that you need to do with them. You'll notice on all of these, they all have their guards on them. Now, there's some people out there that absolutely refuse to use their angle grinders with the guard on. They take it off first thing and they never put it back on. Now, I'll admit I have been guilty of every now and then picking up an angle grinder in haste and working with it without the guard on there. Now, that for me is a mistake, and it's an oversight, because I really believe in working with the guard on. Those things are there for a reason. They were designed for a reason. They're provided by the manufacturer for a reason, and that is basically to keep you free from harm. Bottom line. I've heard a lot of people say, well, you can't work effectively with the guard on. It gets in the way. I'm here to tell you, and I might receive some bad letters about this, but I think that's hogwash. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I've been able to use my angle grinder in every conceivable position imaginable for any kind of job using the guard. And the main reason is because the guard is adjustable. You can move the way the guard sits on the angle grinder. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the type of attachments, the actual stones and discs that you put into your grinder. First and foremost, the most common and what it's named for is this grinding stone. This is a stone type of a material. This particular one is made for metal, and they do have some for masonry products as well, but you have to make sure that the top of the stone is intended for metal, and as you see here, it's very clearly marked metal. This happens to be a 4.5 inch disc, which is what all my grinders are. They're 4.5 inch grinders. That seems to be probably the most popular size. Okay, next here we have a cutting disc. Now, a cutting disc also, they make these for other materials as well, so you have to make sure that's for metal. You'll notice how very thin this cutting disc is. And this disc is intended to cut steel or cut metal. It is not intended to be used to grind metal. I see a lot of people sometimes putting these into their grinders and using them to cut, but then unfortunately using them to grind as well. I will tell you, these are so thin that they very easily can become destroyed and shatter. And when they shatter, they shoot out everywhere. Next, we have a wire wheel. Now, this particular one happens to be made out of stainless steel, and they do offer them in regular carbon steel as well. These are great for cleaning off material prior to welding. They're great for cleaning material off after welding, both post and pre. Make sure that you definitely wear your protective gear when you use these, because these little metal twines here, they do just happen to shoot right off of these things. Okay, next we have, this is a regular regular sanding disc, and this kind of a disc is this is placed on the grinder along with this disc on top here, and then this nut gets placed inside here, which secures it all, and then it gets screwed into the grinder itself, and that holds it in place. On the flip side, we have this, which is a sanding flap disc. Now, they call it a flap disc because it's made of individual little flaps of sandpaper. These flaps of sandpaper are layered one on top of another in a spiral fashion here. These are great. They're very useful. They seem to last a long time if they're taken care of and they're used properly. Highly recommend them. I know it isn't always the funnest topic in the world, but let's talk about safety real quick, okay? I kind of touched on it earlier, but I'm just going to go through some of the basic things you should probably think about having before you do any grinding. Number one, hearing protection. A face mask, or at the very minimum, definitely some kind of protective, either safety glasses or goggles, a respirator or some kind of breathing protection. Gloves are another thing, and the sleeves that I'm wearing, long sleeves, are very important. Okay, so now that I've shown you some of the discs that are available, let me show you how exactly you mount and dismount these things. First and foremost, before you're going to do this, you want to make sure your machine is not plugged in. Reason for that is you're going to be having your hands right in this general area, and if you accidentally hit the switch on something like this, and I know most of these have safety devices that cause you to squeeze actually 2 buttons before they actually go on, still, you don't want to take a chance. On the back here, on the face of the head of the grinder, there's usually some kind of a button like this one which prevents the disc from rotating. So if you see right now, if I spin it, it'll spin freely. But as soon as I engage this little locking device, all of a sudden it locks into place and I can't spin it anymore. All manufacturers, just about all of them, supply you with this wrench that can be placed in here and allows you to loosen this nut, which holds the disc in place. I personally seldom use it. I usually hold it and I just twist the actual nut along with the disc itself, and it seems to come off just fine. If you really have it cinched down though, you want to make sure you have this thing around because it oftentimes does require it. This particular nut here has 2 sides as well. It has a raised side, and on the back it's actually recessed here. Now, depending upon what disc you're going to use determines what side of this you're going to put down. For your standard grinding disc or grinding stone, you're always going to want to put the raised portion of it down, and that is so the raised portion actually will go through into the disc itself and allow it to seat properly so it doesn't wobble all around. You see, now it's in there, and that raised portion actually goes inside into the disc itself, because if you notice, and I'll use this flap disc, this area here, the raised portion of that nut will actually fit inside of it and slip in there and just hold everything nice and tight here. And you notice when it spins, it doesn't wobble. For everything else, like this cutting disc, you're going to use the other side of the nut, and that's the flat or recessed side. This wheel has to sit in the indented part of the back nut here, and then this portion has to sit on the flush portion, and then you get it in there and tighten it real good, and there you have it. The last type of thing that you would put on here are those that come pre-threaded, like this wire wheel. This is the easiest of all because all you really have to do is just, it's already pre-threaded, it has a nut on it already, it's made to match with the arbor of this grinder. You just screw it in, tighten it down, and you're ready to go. Okay, so without further ado, let me go ahead and do a little demonstration of how to do a proper grind here. Okay, a few things I'd like to mention while this is playing. Number one, I have sped up the scene here to make it go a little faster. Number two, I'm keeping my grinding stone flat and parallel to the face of the actual workpiece. Also, I'm grinding on the top centermost portion of the wheel, which would be around the 12 o'clock position. You'll notice that the sparks are flying to the right. That is an indicator that you are in the 12 o'clock position, and that's a very sturdy, steady position to be in for this particular type of a grind. Okay, now here's my close-up of what I just ground off of this plate. Now, I was not trying to grind a lot off of here. In fact, all I was trying to do was grind off the mill scale, which, as you can see from the shiny metal, I accomplished that. The reason why I didn't gouge it out so much is because I didn't put any undue pressure on it. I let the machine pretty much do the work. I just allowed it to basically rest on there while I had a firm hold on the machine. I went in an up and down, back and forth, side to side motion. I made sure that I didn't put, again, a lot of undue pressure, and I didn't stay in one spot at any given time. I constantly moved. So I moved up and down, and as I moved that up and down, I made slight movements to the left until I got to the end, and then I came back up and down, and I moved to the right. So moving the grinder, keeping it constantly moving, is a sure way to get a nice, smooth, evenly flat grind without digging into one particular area or the other. The whole reason for this video is because we had a gentleman that wrote in about wanting to see what a high polish finish, how it was accomplished. And in actuality, what I just did, grinding, is half of the equation. That's the first part of it. Now, in the video that I showed, where this gentleman was inquiring about, I actually ground a weld down, and then I used a flap disc, and we've talked about that already, but here it is. I used a flap disc for the rest of the way, and I'm going to go ahead and use a flap disc on this here to show you what a nice smooth polish we can get on it. Here we go. Take a look at that. I'm going to put my hand here so you can see the way the light reflects off of that. Now look at that. That is a nice, shiny, high polish finish. Is your question as well. Okay, so that ends another one. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know there was no welding on this particular one, but let me tell you, grinding happens a heck of a lot more frequently than welding when you're actually doing a project. Hey, don't forget, before I sign off, the Weld Fever caps are available for sale, as are the Weld Fever bumper stickers, a brand new item. Go to www.weldfever.com. I thank you very much for all of your support, for all the comments and all the people out there that have been joining our website and the forum. Please keep doing so. Remember, we have a forum on weldfever.com, and we're starting to get a lot more people signing up and a lot of interaction. Check us out. Thanks a lot. I'll see you on the next one.